Hi friends, it's Alora and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing one of my favorite videos, and that is a book haul. So today I'm going to be showing you all of the books that I have purchased in the last season-ish. I did a book haul for the summer, and in the last month or two I've accumulated quite a few books, and I'm going to blame it on my birthday. Honestly, if buying books is my biggest vice, I think we're doing pretty well. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get into the haul. The first book that I want to show you is Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This is a book about two college-age people who are connecting via text, and I think that it's a very pertinent subject to explore, especially as technology becomes a bigger and bigger part of our lives, definitely with this age demographic too. I was originally interested in this book because of the fact that it's focused on college age students instead of high schoolers, and I'm kind of at that age where I'm graduated from college and I have been for several years. So high school books aren't really appealing to me as much anymore, but I still like that YA feel, that like young love, you know, lighter, dealing with your identity, those kinds of issues coming up. That was not very grammatical, but you know what I mean. I really like those kinds of books. So I love seeing kind of new adult aged characters without the graphic element of new adult fiction. The next book that I picked up is actually a poetry collection by Rudy Francisco called Helium. Rudy is a spoken word poet, and I listened to some of his stuff online and was very moved, so I decided to try reading his poetry collection. I think that it doesn't have quite the same effect as listening to the spoken word poetry, because you can tell that he really puts a lot of emphasis on his inflection and the undulations of his voice, and just, you know, the emphasis that can be created through spoken word. If I had to classify it, I would say that this collection is mostly about love and heartbreak, but also deals with racial issues that are prevalent in our world today, especially here in America. So I can definitely recommend this. My favorite, I know this isn't a wrap-up, but my favorite poem, and the one that initially drew me into this collection, is Rifle. I'll talk more about some of my other favorites in my August wrap-up, coming soon to a screen near you. Maybe. A fantasy book that I had pre-ordered for the month of August was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I read her book, The Enchantment of Ravens. Hadn't really loved it, but I loved the idea of it, and so I definitely wanted to give her another shot. This book is about a young librarian in training. She's training to be a warden of the libraries, and in this world, libraries house books that have souls, sort of, and they have personalities and they're full of magic, and so these libraries are almost like prison facilities. They're very high security. At the start of this novel, some of the books in the library get accidentally unleashed, and so we follow this character. She's trying to figure out who let the monstrous books out of the library and how to kind of restore order and balance to the world once again. I did read this book in the month of August, so I will also be talking about it in my monthly wrap-up. After that, I purchased In Other Words by Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri is an author that I have read extensively. I haven't finished all of her work, but I'm almost there at this point. And this is an autobiographical novel, which is definitely a departure for her. She is an Indian-American author who decided to move to Italy and begin writing solely in Italian from here on out, and she's done that ever since she moved to Italy. She's only written her books in Italian. So this book is kind of interesting because on the left-hand side you have the book written in Italian, and she wrote this one solely in Italian, and then on the right-hand side you can see that there is a translation in English. So it's definitely shorter than it looks because half of it is Italian, which I can't read. This book is very self-reflective and deals with the topic of identity as it relates to language and culture. The next two are books that I actually received as birthday presents, so I wanted to say thank you to my aunt who bought these books for me for my birthday. The first one is Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sugagawa. This book is set in Japan and is about this man who's in his middle age and he's working in a dorayaki shop, basically these sweet pancakes filled with sweet bean paste. His life has definitely taken a downhill turn. He's been in jail and now he's working at this little food shop trying to repay a debt, and then he meets this older woman who just shows up at the shop asking for a job, and the story kind of unfolds from there. It's a tale about acceptance, it's a tale about turning your life around, it's a tale about appreciating the beauty in life and all of the tiny delights, and It definitely feels like it aligns with this very pastel, lovely cover. The other book that I received for my birthday was The Lowland by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is the only book of hers that I have yet to read. I believe that it deals with a family tragedy following two brothers. It's a family saga book, and I really appreciate the way in which Jhumpa Lahiri places her words one after the other. I think that she's an impeccable author and that she's definitely worth a read. My favorite work from her was Unaccustomed Earth, which is a short story collection, and the way in which she wove those short stories together was just so unique and unexpected and lovely and heartbreaking and just so emotionally evocative. So I would definitely recommend giving Jhumpa Lahiri a go. But I don't have an opinion about this one yet. I haven't read it yet. Another book that I received as a gift, it wasn't a birthday gift, kind of a joke gift, was Not Quite Narwhal by Jessie Sima. And this is a children's story about this unicorn who lives underwater who thinks it's a narwhal and then realizes that he's not in fact a narwhal, he's really a unicorn. And so he's struggling with this idea of, should he be a sea unicorn or should he be a land narwhal? Should he leave the family in which he was raised to go live with these people or these unicorns that are, you know, actually his family, or should he stay with the ones who brought him up? And it's really cute and very pastel and just a delightful story. Alright guys, this next chunk of books is the last chunk, and they were all purchased at the same time. Self-control is not my strong suit. The first one from this group of books is called An Ocean of Minutes by Thea Lim. This novel just sounds so engrossing and fascinating. It's a time travel story, which I'm generally not a fan of, just to put that out there, but this one sounds really good. It's about this young couple where the man gets a deadly flu virus and the woman is presented with the opportunity to basically go into bonded labor with this time traveling company. So she can travel 20 years into the future to save her current boyfriend, but she can't come back. And so she is trying to decide whether she should, you know, give up 20 years of her life to save this man that she's only known for like a year or something. And then when she decides to do it, they set a time where they're supposed to meet in the future, like, I don't know what year, pretend it's like 2009, so they decide we'll meet at this specific place on this specific day in this year, and we'll be together then. But he has to go through 20 years of living without her, and for her it just happens in the blink of an eye because she's time traveled to save his life. So this sounds so cool, and I know cool isn't really a very descriptive word, but doesn't it? Like, doesn't it sound cool? And also this book has decal edging, which I really appreciate as a nice aesthetic touch. Can't wait to pick this one up. Another one that I purchased is The Latte Factor by David Bach. This is actually a financial book that's told in parable format, and I heard about it on Marie Forleo's channel. I've watched several interviews that she's done with David Bach. He sounds very competent, and I need to develop myself in terms of my financial literacy. So I decided to start with this one because it's really short, and listening to an anecdote that tells me about investment sounds better than reading a dry book about investment. So that's where we are with that. I do want to say I feel pretty proud of how eclectic this haul is. I feel like we're really spanning the genres here. The next one that I have to show you is a graphic novel called Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and illustrated by Faith Erin Hicks. I adore Rainbow Rowell with every fiber of my being. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. She has written several of my favorite books. I feel like she just makes all her characters so lovable and relatable, and I love the way in which she tells stories. I love the way that she puts her words together, and so I was so excited to see that she was coming out with a collaboration graphic novel about autumn, the best season of the year, hands down, my favorite time of the year. Unfortunately, a very short period of time here in Alaska, but I love autumn so much. So this tale follows these two friends who work at a pumpkin patch together, and they have for the last 4 years, but it's their senior year of high school. It's their final shift at the pumpkin patch. It's Halloween, and they basically decide they're going to have an adventure in the pumpkin patch. They're not just going to do their shift like normal. And I do want to bring up that this isn't any normal pumpkin patch. It's like a really extravagant, very fancy. We have all these different desserts. We've got the s'more pit. We have the hay rides. We have the, you know, everything. Everything you could think of if you think of a pumpkin patch is in this book. And it's just really cute. I mean, look at that. The next genre that we're repping here is long essay form. So we have another Jhumpa Lahiri book called The Clothing of Books. This is a long essay that she wrote to give at some sort of conference, and it explores the idea of book covers and how she feels about book covers, who has created her various book covers, how little control authors have regarding the book covers, whether it's fair to have this aesthetic choice that somebody else has decided be put on your book for people to judge the contents of your book by. And it was, you know, it's interesting. If you're interested in that topic, give it a go. It was written in Italian and then translated to English, I believe, by Jhumpa Lahiri's husband, so that makes it a little better. But still, I feel, and this also applies to her book In Other Words, and I can talk about it more in a wrap-up, but I feel like when you translate a book out of its native tongue, something is lost. And I also feel like Jhumpa Lahiri has such a command of the English language that she's just, I can't even articulate it, because she articulates things so well. She is so eloquent, and she really knows how to put her words together. And then when she's writing in Italian, the writing comes across much more simplistically because she doesn't have that same command of the Italian language that she has of English. So I do want to put that out there, which was a little disappointing just because I love the way in which she normally writes in English. Moving on to Irish literary adult fiction, we've got Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I really loved reading Normal People by Sally Rooney last month. Wasn't that long ago. And so I decided to grab her other book. This book follows two college-age friends who used to date each other and are now becoming enmeshed with this older couple, one of whom is an actor and one of whom is a famous photographer and writer. And spoken word poetry is also actually a theme in this one. I'm exploring a lot of spoken word poetry. I read The Poet X recently. I have two collections of poetry by spoken word poets, and then this all of a sudden, just like out of the blue, has that as a theme, which I thought is interesting. But it basically explores the dynamic between these two couples coming together into a group and how each person connects with different people in the other couple as they develop various relationships and dynamics. And it's very psychologically fascinating, just exploring the inner worlds of especially our main character. I would say, just off the bat, the characters aren't necessarily super likable, but it's fascinating. I'm most of the way through this book. I know this isn't a wrap-up, but I've already read so many of these books, so it's hard not to infuse my thoughts about them. Anyhow, giving Sally Rooney another go. So far, so good. Next up, we have a manga, and that is The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe. This book follows this young little innocent girl who has accidentally gone to the other side, or the underworld if you will, where she encounters demons and is kind of being taken care of by this monster. And I barely have started it, so I don't know much more than that, but I just know that it's kind of a dark, twisted fairy tale told in this visual and linguistic format of a manga, which is something that's very new to me. I've only read a couple manga, and so I'm still getting the hang of reading backwards. But if you know me, you know that I just fall in love with fairy tales, and I'm so interested in fairy tale retellings and twists on fairy tales and dark fairy tales and anything that has to do with fairy tales. Modern fairy tales, a little bit less so, but classic fairy tales, amazing. I should probably do a video on my favorite fairy tale retellings. Anyway, I picked up this one. Continuing our theme of spoken word poetry, we have No Matter the Wreckage, poems by Sarah Kay. Sarah Kay is a very famous and influential spoken word poet. She's amazing. She has a TED Talk, and I discussed this book a little bit in my September TBR, but basically I have no idea what themes this poetry collection explores. I just know that this one interested me the most just from a visual perspective, going back to that topic of discussion about book covers. I loved the book cover, and so I decided that this would be the one that I would pick up of her work first. It is interesting reading her poems versus listening to them, because she writes them to be spoken. And so I kind of wonder about the disconnect there, just like with Helium and Rudy Francisco. Anyhow, I've barely started it and I can't wait to continue. The final book that I have to show you is also the most exciting one. It's the one that I have been waiting for the longest. It is my most anticipated book of the year, and that is Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff. Jay Kristoff is absolutely incredible. He is... what a wonderful... This is the third book in the Nevernight Chronicles, which follows Mia Corvair on her quest for revenge. It is quite the bloody quest. It is incredibly humorous. It's so dark. It is very intricate, can't even say it, intricately woven and complex. I just appreciate his writing style so much. He has footnotes, he has incredible characterization, he has fast plots, and there's just nothing not to love about this book series. So I can't wait to finish reading this and to give you my thoughts. Let me know down below if you want me to do a spoiler-free or spoiler-full review of Dark Dawn. Alright friends, well, my camera battery is about to die because that was a really big book haul. But you know, I'm happy to have new books. I, as always, am so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to purchase this many books, and I hope you know that it's just as good to go get books from the library. Let me know down below some books that you've picked up lately, whether from the library or purchased from a bookstore, and I'm just so excited to stop filming and go read. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm sending you love.